Hey guys, how do you stay motivated with your fitness and exercise routine? Today, we're talking about mindset shifts to help you do that. This is Unloaded. I'm Crystal. This is Megan, and we're happy that you're here. If you have any questions at all, we're going to pop our contact information into the video description, and you can reach out to us right through there. So, Megan, let's get into this. We've been in the coaching game for a long time. We've been athletes training for a long time. And yeah, sometimes you're not always motivated to show up. You're not always like super disciplined, getting after it. And, over the years, we've cultivated some really good like strategies and mindset tips and just like kind of the way we frame things to stay on track ourselves, but also to help our clients stay on track, right?
So, I think you nailed it with like saying both motivation and discipline. They're two different things. And if you always rely on motivation, then you probably won't get very far, at least a lot of the months of the year. So going back to discipline, but like you said, we've developed a lot of habits, and that's one of the reasons we are so disciplined and consistent with our training and lifestyle goals.
Yeah, there are techniques, there are strategies because there are plenty of days. I mean, my gym is in my driveway. Like I don't even have to, it takes me 90 seconds to walk into the gym, but there are days when I'm like, I am dragging myself in there. So there are certainly things that
sometimes the home gym makes it harder.
Right. Yeah. It removes certain barriers, but then it's also like there sometimes, depending on what the barrier is, it doesn't, proximity isn't always a thing that makes it easier. Right. So, that's kind of what we're going to get into today. So, I'll go first. I'll start with something that was really pivotal for me, in training, and just kind of keeping me accountable, keeping me feeling, focused. And I would say happy in training, because I think that's a big thing, right? People will quit because they're just generally, maybe they're not seeing progress, but maybe they're maybe they're unhappy with like how things are moving. They don't see themselves like progressing the way they should. So I'll be very specific. I can really think of like a moment in time. So it was around like, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. And we had goal boards at our gym. And every year I would write goals, and maybe even every 6 months, like put a new goal board on the board. And it was always something like back squat, 250 pounds, snatch 160. And then 6 months or a year would go by. And because we're taught how to set these goals, make it specific, make it measurable, all of the steps that we're supposed to take. So, January would roll around and I'd look at the goal board and I still hadn't snatched 160 pounds. And I'd be like, God damn, like I am a failure. Like it's just, this is not, why do I even do this? Right. So you end up sometimes feeling like when you get really specific and you get really focused on certain outcomes, it doesn't always work out to be that motivating factor that it should be. And you can really lose sight, right? You can lose sight of the progress.
Even just different competitions that people enter, they think this will be the thing that motivates me, and then life gets in the way, or they just didn't feel the way that they should have felt. And now they've failed on something that didn't really matter that much. Or shouldn't have mattered. Like you shouldn't identify with it to the point where you're a failure based on just not doing as well. So
right. And how are we? And I always say to clients, like you cannot control certain outcomes. You just can't. But what you can control is your effort. And that goes from your day-to-day showing up in your fitness routine. And it doesn't matter if you're just someone who's trying to take care of your health, you have no specific competition goals, or you are a competitor and you have some competition goals. You definitely what we want to attach ourselves to is the effort, right? Because that's what we can control. We can't control who's more talented, who works harder, who has a different support system. There are so many different things as competitors we cannot control. And then same thing day to day, people have to look at the different barriers and things in their lives. Maybe, there's just a lot of stress. They're taking care of a family member, or they've had a job change, or they're dealing with some sort of personal injury or sickness, but hey, they're still showing up. So that was really pivotal for me. And I remember, very distinctly writing down, instead of I will snatch 160 pounds, it changed to, I will work on Olympic lifting 2 times a week. And that's it.
Yeah.
I went into
Yeah.
the gym. It could have been with an empty bar. It could have been, for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It didn't have to be some dedicated, 90-minute session where I was doing like really specific drills. It was just, nope, you're going to show up and you're just going to work on this movement
Yeah.
because you enjoy it and it's good for you. It changed everything. And I did
Yeah.
that across the board with like all of the goals I had regarding to with fitness, like
Yeah.
run twice a week, Olympic lift twice a week, like just work task related goals that rewarded
Yeah.
me for my effort and made me feel
I
good even on
agree.
those
Well,
really hard
exactly.
days.
And then it turns everything into a win, whether you're just more comfortable with the empty barbell or
Exactly.
doing the lift that you've just stopped avoiding the lift that you try to avoid in public places.
Yeah.
And that's a
Yeah.
win on its own, but you stop
Exactly.
celebrating those things if you put all of the goals around that one very, very specific goal.
Yeah, like it has to be this number or I'm a failure. And it's like
Yeah.
it just doesn't. So it
Yeah.
really can put some like yeah, you can stack some wins and it can put some joy back into it. And you may surprise yourself too. Like you end up just once you're enjoying something, you can really watch the wheels fly off and all of a sudden like you're making progress. So that was a big one
Yeah.
for me in terms of mindset was just what am I working on? What am I
Yeah.
putting some effort into? Not so much, like what's the outcome?
Yeah. I agree. I love that.
Yeah. How about
Love that for
you?
clients too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. So one of the things that I find really motivating, and that's been very steady for me since I kind of started weight training when I was 18, going to, Shapes Fitness. But for me, that was like a big weightlifting at that time, was just using the cable machines and light 15 reps type thing. So the thing that kept me going, even as my goals changed, my fitness regime changed, was just the idea of who I'm going to be or how I want to live my life well past the age of 65. I
Yeah.
do find that very motivating, because the idea of these long-term health goals as a source of motivation, it doesn't slow down. It's not specific. It's so long-term that no matter what you do working on yourself, you're working towards that. If you take
Yeah.
a week off, if you have a tougher week, and I see myself as a strong and active person forever. I
Yeah.
want to run. I want to jump. Those things aren't easy to do at that age. You have to just continue to work
Yeah.
at it forever. And that work starts now. That work started yesterday. The more we do now, the more we can help ourselves later, and for most people.
Yeah.
And I want to build a strong body to be able to recover from things like falls. I want to get on my bike. I want to know that if I fall off my bike, I will probably recover like 100% or pretty
Yeah.
close to. And a
Well,
lot of people
yeah,
start avoiding those activities when they're older because they're
absolutely.
afraid of how their body could recover. So if I keep
100%.
training my body fairly hard and
Yeah.
being the strongest absolute person I can be, then I'll probably continue those activities when
Into
I'm
your
far
later years.
older.
Yeah.
And
And
I find that like larger picture, I'm very driven to just continue to work towards that. And
oh, that's
sometimes
awesome.
those short-term goals that you mentioned, they get derailed, then you're disappointed,
Yeah.
but I just never stop because of that person that I'm
That
working
long term.
towards being
Yeah.
like far, far down the road.
Well, and I
Um,
think what's so important too is like some of the statistics and sort of like outcomes for, in particular, women who experience falls later on in life, and in particular around broken hips.
yeah,
It's actually alarming, the decline, and I will go so far to say, because I know I'm not wrong, like death, the
yeah,
sort of after that fall, you see this rapid decline in health that leads to like like people actually dying sooner than they need to. And it's
yeah,
all related to like frailty and like sarcopenia and like loss of muscle mass. So like what you're saying is so important.
yeah. And I mean, you see some of the athletes I train, they've had a stroke in their 50s, and their doctors are telling them, you probably won't be able to do this, this, and this. maybe ever again, or for another 5 years. And then honestly, it's like a few months, you see them back in the gym.
Yeah.
A year or two later, they're hitting new personal bests in
Yeah.
their deadlift and in heavy lifts. And their doctors are like, what the heck are you doing? And it's like, I'm
Yeah.
doing what I was doing before my
Before.
stroke.
Yeah.
And that's why what we do now is so important. Don't wait. Don't
Yeah.
wait. Don't wait to be in trouble before you start working on
Yes.
those joints and muscles and just
Totally.
building that body armor that
Yeah,
protects us
take a
and gives us
proactive,
freedom.
yeah, proactive, not
Yeah.
reactive. And you know what? Even if you are someone that gets stuck taking a reactive approach where you're like, wow, like I don't want that to happen again. So I'm going to start taking care of myself. I guess the other message is really that it's never too late and that you
Yeah.
can really start at any age and see some pretty significant returns on your investment.
Absolutely. Never too
Yeah.
late. Now is the time, but if
Yeah.
it's later, still do it anyway. Like
Still do it
just keep
anyways.
moving
Yeah.
forward, keep looking ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Another big mindset shift for me that happened, and I would say like this one, depending on who you are, this could be like something that just takes some time and life experience and a certain amount of maturity. I stopped comparing myself to other
Yeah.
people, like what they were doing in the gym, especially because like this is the age of social media. And so watching other athletes who are like, you know, in the same sport as you, and for me, that would be like CrossFit, watching them like
Yeah.
post their like amazing lifts and like, oh, all the incredible things that they were doing, you know, with gymnastics and stuff. I definitely have come a long way because I used to look at those videos and feel like bad about myself. Like feel
Oh,
like,
totally.
oh, you know, like gosh, I'm never going to be able to lift that. Like I just why can't I look like that when I'm doing that particular movement? Like just this whole like inner monologue that was
Yeah.
not healthy,
Yeah.
certainly not helpful and just like honestly like I would say like just as like a crappy way to live. Like you feel kind of like a little bit like inferior, jealous and small and like so if you let
Yeah.
it like social media
Yeah.
like really it can do that and but
Yeah.
I do think we have to take some responsibility for how we respond to what we see and what we say to ourselves when we
I
see those
agree.
things,
I agree.
right?
I know we should, on some level, like control what we see, and we can control what we see a little bit more through social media. But I personally took a different approach to this. I'm a trainer. I have to train people to often be better at things than I am. And
Yeah,
I'm not going to hold anyone back
yeah,
based on my own level of fitness or my own abilities.
yeah,
So pushing someone past what I can do is very
yeah.
important to me, and genuinely being happy for
Be for
them
them.
was
Yes,
work. It did not always come naturally,
100%.
especially harder for females because
Yeah,
males, you're kind of like, well, of course you can do that. Just, of course you're a bit faster and stronger than I am.
yeah,
At least at first you go through
yeah,
that
for
stage.
sure.
But then when, sometimes with females, it's like, dang, we were pretty close in fitness and you just took off and went
Yeah,
past me. And I didn't want to feel jealous. I wanted to be very genuinely happy. So I started
absolutely.
watching the things that
Yeah.
might trigger me.
Yes.
And I started forcing myself to look at those things and just change my feelings and thoughts instead of hiding
Yeah.
from them.
Yes. I
That was
think that
powerful.
that's powerful. I do think
Yeah.
that like you're touching on a couple of really good things there. First of all, I think that yes, you can curate your social media so that you
Mhm.
never have to see anything that makes you feel bad about yourself. And I think to a certain degree, sure, like you know what, do what you need to, especially if you're
Yeah.
like you're protecting your mental health. Okay, like I understand it is
And maybe
necessary.
it's just temporary.
Totally. I think
Yeah.
over the long term, I do think that there is something
Yeah.
to be said about sort of acknowledging your feelings and your reactions, especially when we're talking about this, when we're talking about fitness.
Mhm.
Because, like, obviously, you could apply this to many different things, but when we're talking specifically about like other people's accomplishments and like doing like, you know,
Yeah.
amazing things, first of all, it's a sign of a great coach to be able to like be happy for someone who you're coaching
Yeah.
and who is like succeeding and excelling and passing you. Like I want
Yeah.
my clients to be stronger than me. Like
Yeah.
I want these girls to crush it. Like, I want to see people like crush their goals, and it has nothing to do with like, what I'm doing. So I think that's a
Yeah.
sign of a really good coach. And then the other thing, for me, it was really like practice makes perfect. So I started
Mhm.
like when I would see people do, oh, wow, like, wow, that is so good. And I'd even
Mhm.
try to make a point of like making a comment or like putting a heart on it, like practice celebrating
Yes.
other
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
doing
I
awesome.
agree.
And
I did the same thing where it was
it
like I
feels
didn't
good.
just scroll past if it was like, ooh, I
Yeah.
wanted that. And you just
Yeah.
did that way before I did. I've been working on it for longer than you have. I like
Yeah.
it. I
Like
comment
it.
and I
Because
change my mindset. And then
yes.
eventually that becomes easier and easier.
Yeah.
But it did take years because a new level of something would happen
Yeah,
all the
it's
time.
it's
Yeah.
it's maturity. It's like really kind of
Mhm.
stepping into your own self-assurance and like really feeling like, hey, I'm happy with where I'm at and what I'm doing. So that
Yeah.
allows me to be happy for other people and also to
Yeah.
see what they're doing. And instead of feeling small and jealous and inferior, to be inspired by it and
Yeah.
think like,
Yeah.
wow, look what's possible.
Yeah.
And for
Yeah.
me, that was a really big thing when it came to like staying focused on like keep showing up because it wasn't about what other people were doing. It was about what I
Yeah.
was doing. And I think
Yeah.
that was really, really key for me as well.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about you? I know that you've got more here.
Yeah, so I mean something else is we're talking about like kind of big lifestyle goals, but there's the little mundane tasks that it's hard to find motivation for. And then we procrastinate, we're mad at ourselves. It just kind of filters into the rest of our lives. So when it comes to things, motivation surrounding things I don't immediately enjoy, I look for ways to cultivate genuine engagement. So not just like faking it and
Yeah.
forcing it.
Yeah.
There's a power in finding ways to genuinely care about everything you do.
Yeah.
So when I don't feel passion or interest towards something, I don't just write it off as boring or
Hmm.
unnecessary. Um, and I try not to hand off work like that until I've at least tried it for a while
Hmm.
and decided that I may or may not be the best person at those jobs and then make the change going from there.
Yeah.
But instead, I'll ask myself the question first, or two key questions. And first, is this task essential in my life, or can I let it go because I don't need to keep everything that I don't want to do?
Yeah.
Um, but it's not as simple as just dismissing it to, I don't like this. I'm never going to do this. I used
Right.
to do that.
Yeah.
And I just
Yeah.
didn't want to be that person anymore because you just start avoiding some great things that could have
Yeah.
brought a lot of wonderful people and wonderful activities into your life and inspiration.
Yeah.
And secondly, if it is something that I need to keep, how can I shift my perspective to finding meaning in it?
Yeah.
And sometimes when I'm talking about dealing with clients, even if it's someone who maybe I don't have as much in common with, we live a little bit of a different lifestyle, I just ask them a lot of questions and I get to know them and I genuinely develop feelings and care for
Yeah.
them to get better. And it's not always immediate. Everyone's
Hmm.
different and you
Yeah.
have, different meets, like the way you meet someone
Hmm.
that first time might impact how you feel with them.
Yeah.
So instead of just dismissing them or dismissing
Yeah.
these tasks, you just
Yeah.
go dig deeper, try it, change your mindset, and you can find a lot of opportunities to learn and grow from these
Yeah.
people or through these experiences that you might have decided to enjoy before going through this process or
Yeah.
avoid before going through this process.
Yeah. I think it's like
Yeah.
also kind of you can probably tie in like just overall like a feeling of like gratitude into that. Like you're just like practicing
Yeah.
gratitude. Like, yes, this like,
Yeah.
because sometimes some of those like mundane, boring tasks are things that, we just kind of have to stack day after day. It's like, this is a necessary thing. Like you kind of said, like, is it necessary? Okay, this is necessary. Maybe I don't totally enjoy it, but it contributes to like my overall well-being and it makes like
Yeah.
life a little bit better. And it's like moving the dial closer, to maybe some of those other things that are more meaningful. Like, so like, for example, like meal prep would be a really good one where you're just like,
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
want to, I don't want to do
Easy
this.
one.
Like, yeah,
Never.
it would be easier to just not care. And like, I don't really necessarily want to do this, but I know that it's good for me and it is essential. And it is something that like in the long term contributes to like my overall happiness and health. So
Yes.
I think that's important too.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. No,
absolutely.
I think that, I think like those points actually are like just super helpful in terms of like, making people aware that like, mindset is a really big part of diet and nutrition and fitness and just like adherence. And so sometimes
Yeah.
it's just like, is it, cause like I will say like, there was one time I had an interaction with a client where she was like, I genuinely hate exercise. Like she was like a good client at my gym at the time. She'd been
Yeah.
coming for years. She was a fit person, showed
Yeah.
up regularly to our noon class. And we were just chatting about, we had some sort of discussion during like in between lifts or something. And she was like really frank with me. And she was just like, yeah, I don't actually like exercise. Like I don't like doing this, but I do it because I know that the other option just is
Yeah.
less appealing. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to like have my health decline and suffer because like
Yeah.
because I don't want to be here. And so I guess
Yeah.
the other thing too is sometimes just acknowledging that, you do your best with your mindset and try to be motivated by things that like, make you happy and like set you up for success. But sometimes, I mean, she's a great example of where you can ask yourself, well, what's the other option? Like, right? Like
Yeah.
I show up
Yeah.
and I take care of myself or I don't. And where is that going? So it isn't
Yeah.
always like unicorns and rainbows. Like sometimes
Yeah.
it's hard and you do it because it's good for you, even if you
Yeah.
don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Completely agree.
Right. So that's sometimes where we have to land. But hopefully everyone who is listening loves exercise and taking care of themselves and never has to fight through that. But if you do, you certainly aren't alone. So I think we can wrap it
No.
up there
Yeah.
and kind of move forward. But yeah, I think these things will be helpful for people. Hopefully someone takes some nuggets from this and kind of can work through some of those tougher
Yeah.
days when you just don't feel as motivated.
Yeah. I love the topic. I could talk about it all day, taking little pieces from everyone, and
Yeah.
it's worth talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, we can always revisit. So if you do have
Mhm.
any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. And if you have anything to contribute, we'd love to hear from you. And thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks.